Hello, everyone. I'm John Coleman from Apocatastasis Institute for the Humanities, an alternative college and high school here on New Milford, Connecticut, USA. Today, I'm being joined by Andy Rogers, and we're going to be talking about naturism and various projects she's involved with. And we're going to get into the philosophy of nudism and all sorts of things appropriate to this stuff. And before we get going, first of all, Andy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Where are you joining us from?
We are on tour currently, and we're in Worley, Idaho at Sun Meadow Sunseekers. It's a non-landed club. So it's the 11th stop on our 16-stop tour. So at a friend's house with good Wi-Fi.
Very good. That's
it's hard to find.
Good friends and good Wi-Fi is what the world needs more of.
Yeah.
Before we get into our topic here, just for the audience, a few directions here. We have in the description below Andy's website, as well as ANR's website. That will be down below if you wish to do some more reading. And I think after our interview, that will be very much in order. By way of advertising, everyone gets the one plug from John Coleman each recording. And for this one concerning the Institute, I would direct everyone to our club, Litchfield County Naturists, which is, in addition to nudist activity, we also do earthing hikes and some other health stuff as well. So incorporating the nakedness just within that larger aspect of improving health and friendship and so forth. So I would encourage everyone to check that out. And I will be publishing a very hefty article, which will doubtlessly be about 100 pages later this spring, on nudism and child rearing and education. So I would also advertise that for everyone to keep an eye out.
Wonderful.
So Andy, here you are in Idaho. Here I am on top of Connecticut here. Tell us a bit about yourself in general, and we can move our attention after that towards how you got into nudism in particular.
I grew up on a farm outside of Cle Elum, Washington, and my name just happened to be McDonald. So old McDonald had a farm, and we did, and I absolutely loved growing up on the farm. And after a good number of years, we moved to Yakima, Washington, and that's where I met my current husband. And we just discovered getting into naturism. He's a self-proclaimed nudist his entire life, and so surprised him with a trip to a club near our home one year, and then we were hooked after that. But growing up, there was no nudity at all, of course. Very, very conservative family, but that's okay because we all come from someplace and we're all going somewhere. So.
Excellent. And when it came to your husband and going to the club and everything, did that present any difficulties for yourself? You, as we'll find out, do a lot of work in particular with women and naturism. So for yourself personally in those early experiences, did that present any hesitancy or difficulty that you had to work through?
It did. When we pulled in, Tom saw the sign that said you may encounter nudity beyond this point, and he just got a huge grin on his face. And I said, "This is for you. This is not for me. Do not expect me to get nude." And we pulled in and we're setting up, and we have an RV, and he's setting up. He does the outside stuff and I do the inside stuff. And as I'm looking out the big picture windows in front of me, the hostess is walking someone around, and she's wearing nothing but her shoes and a smile so big and so much confidence, just exuding from her. And I looked at her and I thought, I want that confidence. I've never been a confident person my entire life, especially when it comes to my body and accepting my body. So I took off my sarong, which is standard nudist attire, And I walked outside and I found him, and he just got the biggest smile on his face. He said, "See, it's really not a big deal."
Mm,
And for that weekend, it was fine. There were hardly anyone else around. So I was happy with that. But we went to another club the next year, and that's our home club, Serenity Mountain Retreat.
mm,
But it took me a few years to remove the sarong from my waist. I
mm,
was still very, very uncomfortable with my belly, my mommy belly. I just didn't have that confidence yet. But
mm.
it took me a few years to get really comfortable.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Now, as we dive deeper, Andy, into this topic, let us define a few of our terms here. And we'll begin at the beginning. Um, how do you define naturism, nudism? Do you use the words interchangeably? And what is the philosophy behind it? Obviously, there's the undress, but is there more to naturism than just that?
Oh, I think so. I think naturism to me is connecting back with nature, and you can do that most fully when you are nude. So there's nothing separating you from nature. And so I've heard so many times people say that the feel of the wind on their skin or the water over their body
Mm,
is akin to a love language, one of the love languages that was never felt so strongly as it was when you connect with nature on that basis. Even just lying in the grass and looking up at the stars is a different feel as a naturist. And then I think taking it one step further as a nudist, it is a freedom like none other I've experienced before either. And it's a freedom to accept myself, to not be judged by anybody, because it's not a sexual thing at all. It is just being free to be yourself, and you're looked at for who you are, not the clothes you're wearing, not the car you're driving, not the jewelry you have on. It's you as a person.
mm.
And there's a wonderful freedom that comes with that, and acceptance. And I think the nudist or naturist community are some of the most accepting people I've ever met.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And I find with nudism and why we've incorporated it in part of our work, it's gotten quite a bit of attention in the last year. It is only
Yeah,
part of our work at the
right.
school. But in any case, what I find is that properly incorporated nudity in a social setting um, can be a very good common denominator or a strata to build more substantive relationships on once you get to that non-judgmental aspect that you brought up, and uh, that openness and that in a sense vulnerability that if that's present, that's a great place to build relationships, to build community off of, and I think nature is so valuable for that.
I agree. I think it so much is. The community is a huge part of it. Camaraderie and connections, which is kind of a basis that I've built the Women in Nude Recreation Foundation on.
Mhm.
That's serving us very well.
Before we get to that particular mission and the tour that you're on, let us also define the terms which we certainly used before recording and may yet come up, and that is landed clubs, non-landed clubs, and any other vocab that you think might be appropriate as we plow along here.
A landed club simply is maybe a club that owns a piece of land with buildings, and some are very rustic, like our Serenity, up in the mountains, peaceful and calm, and others have a resort feel to them. So
Mm,
pools and restaurants or a bar in to visit. So, but a non-landed club like we're at this weekend is
mm,
just a group of people, a group of naturists that don't own land, they get together in people's homes, or perhaps they have events outside their homes. I know of a lot of swims that are done, or bowling, hiking for sure, especially in the Northwest in the summer months, and lots of different activities that they do, and they get together and enjoy each other's company and build that community and that camaraderie together. And then, what else would there be? I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
Yeah,
If we come up with something, I'll define it as we go.
absolutely. That's great. That's great. And because of the audience will largely be the school community and our supporters and benefactors, LCN would be an example of a non-landed club with hikes or events in homes and so forth. So,
Yes, yes.
um, how would you say, I'd like to return to how you developed from your initial RV reception of nudism to some of the offices that you hold and some of your more involved work now. But before we get there, Andy, whilst we're on the topic of clubs, in the past couple of years, certainly I think accentuated because of the disruptions of COVID-19 and the shutdowns and so forth, there has been an acceleration, at least in the Northeast here in New England in particular, of clubs closing and having hard times. I know out west, there are some other clubs that have lately closed.
Yeah.
Doing this tour now and with your different posts that you hold with ANR, etc., having a finger on the pulse, can you give us an update as to the health of clubs, as to perhaps the future of clubs, as to how groups like ANR and some of the other national groups um, uh, imagine things developing in the future with these landed clubs?
The struggle was difficult, especially for our club, closing for the COVID.
Mm,
We had to sell some property in order to, or not property, but some things in order to keep our club going. But I also think that because of that COVID, people were nude at home. And so
mm,
I think there was a resurgence of people wanting to get out and explore it beyond home. And I think there's been an uptake at clubs that are still thriving in people visiting and wanting to explore it further. I think that out here in the West, some of the clubs that have been closing are because the owners, they're owned clubs, not
mm,
co-ops like many of them are, and they are simply getting to a point where they don't want to work 24/7, and so it's time for retirement and to enjoy
mm,
life. And I think that's what's been the what's going on here. As far as I know, Sun Meadow here used to have a beautiful clubhouse,
mm,
but the people running it needed to retire. So there's a group through Anner that's looking into possibilities of maybe what could happen uh, for another club that might shut down. That's not too expensive. Are there benefactors that could all come together? And other ideas that they're exploring to perhaps keep the clubs, naturist clubs, instead of having them revert to a textile club instead. So we're exploring that. It's hard, you got to come up with a couple million, or
mm.
there's one for sale for 34 million, and that's a lot. Yeah. But we're
Yes,
exploring it. Anna is exploring it.
and ANR. Let us define ANR. We've been
Yeah.
using it, and
Yeah.
we have not had in our audience. Let's define ANR for our listeners.
You bet. It's the American Association for Nude Recreation. It's been around since 1931, with their primary goal to keep nude recreation a safe and healthy environment for people. So if you are a club, either landed or non-landed, or if you're a business, there are many businesses that are affiliated with ANR. Then you must hold to strict standards of family-friendly nudism, which means absolutely nothing sexual going on at a club, which is what it is. Social nudism. That's the aspect, is to just get together and be nude together. I think society brings in the element of if you're naked, then it's probably a sexual thing. So that's society's way of telling that story, I guess, because that's what they see in the movies or
Mm.
just what they've been told. So when people do come and visit and um, they show some kind of a unwanted attention or
Mm.
anything like that, we educate them and let them know, hey, this is not the place for that. This is what we're about. And if it continues, the what do you call it, if they continue,
Yeah, sure.
then we
Individual.
escort. Thank you. We escort them out and say, please don't come back. So, but
Great. Thank
Anna
you.
also, yeah, they're advocating always for our rights. There's hundreds of bills a year that they look through, and they have people fighting against the wording. Maybe a bill's written and the wording affects a nude barista, but then it also affects the nudists in your area. And so they advocate and to the Senate or whatever legislator and try to get that wording changed. And many times they do. Many
Mm.
times they do. And the person who wrote the bill maybe didn't understand the overlying aspect of what words were written.
Yes, for instance, in Wisconsin this past year,
Recently, yeah.
yes, it may even still be
Mhm.
in chambers at certain levels. I don't know, but I know there was a brouhaha. And actually, as I'm writing this essay, these things I realized happen every 20 years. There's always every 20 years, going back to the 1930s, there's a major story, a major bogus controversy in the press.
Mhm.
Remember, this might have been before your time in naturism, but so you had the Wisconsin stuff this last year, where just a kid was naked at the World Bike Ride, and some
Right.
do-gooder started calling around, and congressmen and news and all this jazz. There was no corpus delicti, but it didn't stop people from talking.
Yeah.
And then 20 years ago, you might remember this or not, 2004, there was the big, the nude youth camps, right? Some big shot, big mouth from the Washington Post, and then that got onto the TV channels. And again, no corpus delicti, no allegations of wrongdoing, but didn't stop people from talking. And
Right.
you actually can follow this history every 20 years, and we were right for it this past year.
Yeah. I think it frightens people that don't understand what social nudism is, that you are allowing children to be nude in the presence of their parents or other people. And it's a matter of educating what social nudism is and going from that aspect of it. So,
Yes, absolutely. And how the media exaggerates things, how the coverage of things automatically brings serious topics, but marginal topics in terms of their prevalence, and makes them bigger, how it separately lards all of this sexuality upon nudity. And we ought to ask, as all of us consumers of media, why are these narratives given about the body, and on how they are distorting the way we're perceiving reality?
yeah, I agree.
There's a lot to that.
Mhm.
And when it comes to ANR, I can think of another national organization, not nearly as big, but what would strike me, not belonging to any of these organizations, is that ANR's focus, although you were excellent to bring up the legislative aspect, and the very necessary aspect for organizations of naturists. One of the things, Andy, I'd like your thought on this, is ANR tends to focus more on the recreational aspect of nudism, whereas maybe one of the other big groups would be more philosophical, or is that maybe a misperception?
I think because it's in the wording, nude recreation. Of course, that's a
Mm.
focus, I would think, but there's so many different things about AANR, advocacy being the first one, and
Mm.
social nudism and recreation. Whether that's at a club or you're going to go out into nature and enjoy nature in that form of recreation, I'm not sure how to answer that question. Actually,
Well, that's fine.
okay,
We can all chew over something. We can all chew over. Nothing wrong
yeah,
with that.
yeah.
So we've looked at Anna and the groups and some of this larger advocacy and the health, the clubs and the situation there, and you offered such great dynamics, Andy, to that. Before we get to your women's work, I would like to revisit yourself and the camper, and you you had just visited this place with your husband, and you were receptive yourself personally. In the years subsequent to that initial visit, how did you develop into some of the roles that you offer? And we can take this explanation into things like wow, women, one word. And as we can see with the little bubble below, women in nude recreation. So if you can take our story from the initial jump to today and to some of the
Yeah.
work today.
Yeah. Well, like I said, it took me a few years to be really comfortable with myself, but in those few years, be, we really began to love Serenity Mountain Retreat. We loved the social aspect of that and the community of that and the people. And so I joined the board as a member at large is one of the positions, and then as the vice president and eventually the president. But during those years, I think it's probably 3 or 4 years, we bought a cabin there. And the main thing that really helped me were the other women in the
Hmm.
nudist community. And so the gathering together and doing things together, sitting on the deck, having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, just visiting down by the dock or around a pool. And we discovered that we all felt less than worthy.
Mm.
Women are so hard on themselves as far as their body image goes, incredibly hard on ourselves. But I think that's something we were taught our entire life. I know I was. But we would sit around and we would edify each other. We build each other up.
Mm.
The women would tell me what they saw in me, the strengths that they saw in me. So things I could never see in myself. And so it was those conversations and those deeper connections that we were talking about with that we can have in the nudist community that finally helped me accept myself and just built my confidence up exponentially. And so I finally was able to take my sarong off and walk confidently through camp. And then I joined Anner, my husband and I, Tom. Each club in the Northwest sends a delegate to a regional meeting, which is exactly where we're at today in Idaho. It's for a regional meeting. And got to understand what AANR is all about and what it does. I don't think a lot of club members know that, which we found on this tour, that they belong to it, of course, but not really understanding the scope of that organization and what they're doing for them. But so we're here to report on that and do that. But I became the winner, Women in Nude Recreation chair there. And then I made a brochure for women aimed at body positivity. So I carry that in my car everywhere I go. If I talk to a woman that feels, well, I'd like to try that, but I can't do that until I lose weight, which is I hear all the time, because they feel they're going to be judged because of their body, because it's not perfect. Well, I'll hand them the flyer and I show them that the different body types on that flyer, all shapes and sizes and colors and scars that come with them as well. And they might consider it. So I carry that, I developed that. And then as the national chair, the Anner president of the day, and still is today, Mitch London, asked me to be the national winner chair. And I happily accepted that position. And then I was immediately terrified because I thought, how on earth am I going to help women across an entire nation? I had no idea how I was going to do that. So I came up with the WOW campaign. It's the Women, One Word campaign. And what I did was asked women to choose a word that defines them or what social nudism has done for them. Write it on their body. And then we took a picture and we shared it across social media last year. in March, which is Women's History Month. I wanted to inundate social media with strong, powerful, positive women in hopes to encourage and empower other women to try social nudism, or at least to take one step further in accepting their own body. And that's been a really powerful campaign with, I think, well over 750,000 interactions throughout all the different social medias we posted it on. And then after that, I created a calendar to go along with it. And that calendar is distributed through clubs mostly. And that calendar has also just had a huge impact on men and women alike. So
Excellent. Thank you for that background there. And for the audience, again, Andy's site is in the bubble there, and you can see some examples of those ladies with their words and so forth, and some more material.
And stories to go along with it. I mean, they wrote why they chose the word. So the little snippet, you absolutely need to read the whole story that goes with some of the words. So
I think
and the
testimony.
one,
yes, please.
Oh, sorry. The one my friend Diane chose was imperfect, but she capitalized the I and the P, changing the narrative to I'm perfect. And that's why I named the tour, it's the I'm Perfect tour, hoping to change women's minds about their bodies, and that you can accept your body just the way it is. And there's great power and peace of mind and well-being that comes when you do that. I've never had such a peaceful soul or mental well-being as I've had joining the nudist community.
I think your testimony personally, Andy, as well as those of the ladies on your site, kind of corroborates some of my own initial comments in this interview about nudity providing this strata, something so simple, really, where these deeper meanings and these explorations of ourself and our interactions with others can take off. It's a great jumping off point, and I think those testimonies bear witness to that.
They do. Some of, if I use Diane's words again, if you read her story, and then kind of going back to the idea that women pretty much don't like anything about themselves, their body. But her concept is that when you accept yourself, you look at yourself in a different way. So you look at your legs. Perhaps you don't like your legs, but she says, my legs can dance. I have arms, and my arms can hug. And I have stretch marks, but they're my trophy of my children. And along that way. So taking the negative narrative that we've had our whole life, replacing it with something positive, empowers you to let go of the past thoughts and kind of, I guess, forgive yourself for thinking that way. And then just try to keep that positive narrative going in your head, which is difficult for a woman to do. I don't know. A few men, I think, as well, but I do believe it's more a woman's issue with their body than a male issue.
Yes, I think, I mean, what this society gives us, and this is very, very obvious if one looks at things, is that we've been told, at least for 30 years, I've been talking a lot about this in other interviews and so forth, we've been given the idea that we are consumers fundamentally. And one of the ways you can sell junk to people, and you can manipulate people in various ways, economically, politically, and in other ways, is to keep them insecure, is to keep them feeling that they're inadequate and
Worthy. Yeah.
Unworthy. That was the word. I was trying to dig for the word. Yes, unworthy. And that's very deliberate in outfits like the Madison Avenue people and their advertising and the film industry and so forth. And you better believe, you can bet your bippy, as the British say, that this is deliberate. This is deliberate to create this are truly artificial. I'm not the first one to say that the body dimensions of the women on with the Photoshop and everything are literally not possible
Yes.
oftentimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
And this is to create this insecurity, which has various uses by the power structure. And something else I like to make a parallel with the damage that visual media does with the billboards and advertising and so forth, how it affects the way we see ourselves physically, is also music. I'm making a parallel because all people do nowadays is listen to very highly refined, polished, edited music that has led to Joe Blow, all of us, very common in American culture because we're hearing super refined music without any flaws in it. It leads the average Joe to think, oh my goodness, my voice is horrible. I'll never sing. I have a horrible voice. And everyone does. They all make fun of their voice and I'm a bad singer and all that. But it's the exact same phenomena we see with visual media because we're seeing Venuses put up on display, we automatically come to have this insecurity and unfounded unworthiness.
Yeah. I think we're also inundated in all social media aspects with weight loss. You have to have weight loss gummy pills or weight loss this or weight loss that. Not to say that I don't want people to try to attain a healthier body, because of course we should strive for that. But it's the absolute inundation. I think this morning I saw 5
Mm,
different ways for me to lose weight. And then you'll be happy if you lose weight.
mm.
But happiness comes from within first, and then perhaps that mental well-being is crucial, and then you can work on uh, your body if you need to. I mean, I have heart disease in my family, so of course I need to be careful of that and be cognizant of that. So working out is a good idea. Watching what I eat is a good idea.
Mm.
But I need to be more focused on my mental well-being before I can even consider the other.
Yeah, I'm always using the old medieval slogan, "Grace builds on nature," and again, it's the old slogan, different slogan from the early years of naturism, a healthy mind and a healthy body. You have to start with the mind, and
Yeah,
then work on your body for your health, not for your vanity.
absolutely. I agree.
And there's this perception that's given to women of insecurity, and then there's also about bogus things. There's also this sentiment of the man as the aggressor, the man, the sexuality of the man and the male's body as well. And there's lately a French philosopher. She's written a book on naturist philosophy, and people can check out a little interview with her on our LCN website, which is linked below as well. And she points that out too. A very necessary attention has been given to the insecurities fostered deliberately in women, but there's also this whole jazz about the male's body and the male's intentions always being aggressive sexually, and I think nature can help diffuse that. And she, this author, brings that up too. It helps really right both sexes' perception of reality ultimately.
Absolutely. From coming from my upbringing, I mean, I was told I was homely and ugly and not wanted my entire life, and that narrative is really hard to get out of my head. And as I've gone on this tour and I've shared my story with women, I'm just incredibly surprised how many come up to me and say that I'm telling their story. So throughout our entire life, our head is filled with this narrative of we're not good enough, or we're
Mm.
ugly, or we're not worthy. And so coming up against that lifetime of negative language in your head is challenging.
Yes, absolutely. Last year, we had quite a blow up, as I've alluded to, at the school here, and it fundamentally had to do with, I believe, um, a whole lifetime on the part of some people, a whole lifetime of negative body perceptions, um, kind of compounding, basically we had people involved with the school, and we had, it was very public, the nudist aspect, but they apparently were unaware of this. And then all of a sudden, what I feel is decades of conditioning and fear and so forth, just boom, 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 boom. It's like a building
Yeah.
collapsing. And that's largely the fulcrum of the essay that I'm writing, is simply a petri dish of a whole nation and a whole world of this same garbage that we've been larded with, and we don't ever address it. We don't ever do anything but just stew in this fear, and then and these blowups. And it's again, that's why I think the openness of nudity is not just a physical thing.
It's so much more.
Mm,
Absolutely, completely. For me, it was all about the mental and
mm,
getting over the decades of hating myself, absolutely hating myself.
mm,
To change that to, I'm going to love everything about me. That's just, you're not supposed to do that. But it changes the narrative in your head, and I think that's what I'm trying to accomplish with everything I'm doing with Winter, is to
mm,
help change that narrative, um, and affect women's lives to at least start looking at themselves in a different way. Let me look at myself the way you see me, and then
mm,
eventually I can look at myself with love, and that changes your world.
mm.
Completely changes your world.
Now, Andy, for someone for whom naturism is new, and for is a topic altogether, let alone personally involving themselves with it, but someone, you've primed the pump, you've interested someone in our time together. Um, how would you say one ought to approach on average? You're obviously hearing a lot of feedback from people, and you're in the camps and so forth, so there's a certain amount of demographic, so to speak, that you have access to. What would be the most successful way for someone to get into nudism? Would it be simply at home with the family, or to go on a hike, or what are your thoughts on that matter? How to make the plunge?
I think it's going to be so different for so many people,
Mm,
but I would, starting at home, being a home nudist is a safe environment for you to do. Absolutely, sleeping nude. There's a great freedom in that. I have done that pretty much my whole life,
mm,
but never understood really why. Um, it's just more comfortable. But a home nudist is a great way to start. And I talk with men a lot that want to know how they can get their partner involved in it,
mm,
because they enjoy it, but the woman, of course, is uncomfortable with it. So some things that I tell them is absolutely don't pressure her. It needs to be in her own time. But sometimes there are clothing optional events at clubs, or non-landed clubs host uh, uh, a clothing optional. So your partner, or whoever
mm,
you'd like to introduce to this lifestyle, or anybody that wants to try it, single or couple, go to a clothing optional event, and maybe give yourself a time limit. If you give yourself a time limit of 15 minutes and I'm not digging this, then it's okay to leave and
mm,
maybe try something else. Also, getting together with a group of people in a completely non-nudist environment. Go out for coffee, or have a dinner together, and just meet other nudists and see that they're not crazy. We're simply just like you. We're just like everybody else. We just simply enjoy being nude together. So I think those are some great ways to start, or definitely going on a hike, and being, if you're a person who loves nature, then start with that.
mm.
Definitely.
And June 21st is National Nude Hiking Day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
And
coming
yeah,
coming
then
on
the
the horizon.
following month is the National Skinny Dip, International Skinny Dip. So
Yes, yes.
if you want
We've
to check something off your bucket list, then find a place near you that's going to do that. But both
yeah,
really great ways to to enter the nudist realm.
Yes, and we've participated in that with LCN, and we've actually had on this series Thomas, who organizes that out in New Jersey, and
Mhm.
so that's getting popular. It's also doing something I think uh, will benefit naturism very much, and that is um, having the nudity in terms of the Skinny Dip Day being a fundraiser ultimately, having the nudity simply just be a contingent part of an activity. You just happen to be naked. I think that also changes the dynamic as opposed to just having an event where the focus is not wearing clothes. I
Right,
think that has an appeal. That has a wider appeal to people. Something like a Skinny Dip Day or the naked bike ride, and often
right.
in this around the same time actually.
Yeah. Our event in Portland, our Serenity Mountain Retreat, is just outside of Portland. And I think Portland has one of the largest World Naked Bike rides with 10,000 people in
I imagine it
attendance.
would.
It's more like a walk your bike and wait a while, walk your bike and wait a while. But it's the perfect aspect to join a community of people that are kind of in that mindset and not have to be nude if you don't want to be nude.
Hmm.
But checking out just what's the big deal all about.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
definitely something worth doing. At least doing once is to go to one of
Hmm.
those bike rides because
Yeah,
it is a trip.
it is. So.
Now, Andy, when it comes to the clubs, not just ANR or the landed clubs, but just naturism in general, do you find the difficulty many social groups have, regardless of their focus, on attracting membership? Just because in the society, people are less inclined, because of living habits and so forth, to join clubs. Do you find the same reluctance that maybe in the last century people didn't have with formally joining organizations and all of this? Do you find that this is the case that you're running across?
It absolutely is. And I think it's because um, one of the, I'll backtrack a little bit. One of the questions that Tom gets asked all the time, so on our tour, when I'm meeting with the women, Tom meets with the men. And one of the questions is, how do we get young people to join? And that is a declining trend and something that we're very concerned with at
Hmm.
AANR, um, getting people to join. Speaking for, say, my kids who are in their 30s, they don't want to join anything now because they are busy with family. I mean, they have work, and on the weekends they're doing family things or they're doing sports. So getting away to a club or an event is difficult. They might get away to something special once in a while and enjoy the nudist aspect of it, but they don't want to join clubs. They join Costco. They join a gym. That's what they join. But the trend is to not join like we have in years past. But I think when I think of younger people joining, I'm thinking 50s is younger to me.
Yeah,
And
well,
those
yeah.
are the people, yeah, that maybe their kids are grown. And so they have the freedom to go to a club. And
Mm,
hopefully when they find that community of people and they find that it is accepting and loving and amazing, that they will join one of those communities. If they do join it permanently, that's great. But just to continue to come and add your uh, because each person is so different. I mean, they add something else to the mix. They add.
mm.
You, you can help me try to say what I tried to say,
Well,
but
there's any
yeah,
group has its own personality,
yeah.
and the more you have, you have more flavor, really.
That's it. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to see, even if they don't want to join a club per se, but joining Anner
Mm,
as to just support what we're doing. And if you like being nude, then a lot of our Anner memberships, 40% of them are what we call direct members. They directly join Anner. You don't have to join it through a club. And so they're supporting what Anner is doing to advocate to keep our rights to be nude. So I've been pushing that more than, say, joining a club, because people just don't want to join a club. But here's a membership that is worthy of your $64 a year insurance policy, and that's pretty great.
It is, and you've been very gracious with your presentation. I'm a little bit grouchier, and so I'm just going to speak for myself. The biggest complaint I often hear at events is there's not enough events. Oh, why aren't people putting on more events? Why isn't there more public acceptance of us, and naturism and so forth? And this is just grouchy John Coleman here. People have to put up or shut up. If you're going to complain, you have to join the groups to help them. That's why groups exist, so they can have a social presence. There's a professional presence with the legislature and so forth, and dealing with the chambers of commerce and whatever. And this is just me speaking. You need to be a bit more mature. If you like something, you need to be a bit more mature and step up into these roles, even if it's a headache, even if you don't like going to meetings or paying dues or whatever. This is how you don't have to complain anymore, because these groups can help tremendously in those ends.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Absolutely.
And I think that's part of that whole consumerist thing that we've been given over the past couple of decades, is just to sit on our laurels and to be passive and to be served. Whereas earlier generations, for their own flaws, we all have our flaws generationally, earlier generations had a bit more of that pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and if you want something done, you get it done, and you organize, and you think of look at the what we call Anner now was say way back when in the 30s and 40s, and all they had to deal with the local ordinances and on all of this stuff. They had the whatever acceptance of naturism exists now, it happened because 100 years ago, people, they put in the time, they put in the money, they joined the groups, and
stepped up.
They stepped up. Exactly.
We do need more of that. As in any other organization, I think any club has 10% of the people doing 90% of the work. And, hopefully other people will join in eventually. But I think that goes with a lot of organizations. So,
and that's why a lot of, especially we've seen that here with different groups in the past 10 or 15 years, people get burned out. They get burned out, and then they get sick, and they get just sick, sick of slackers and so forth, and then they throw their hands up. I can think of a number of groups around here in New York City and things. That was the case with them.
Yeah, I know. I get it. I'm doing 20 things.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yourself.
But now I'm trying to focus on just the women, and I will not be president of my club in the fall. So I can let somebody else take that for a while.
Free at last.
Yeah. I'll be president of the Northwest. I'd definitely like to try that for a while and see what I can affect, what changes I can affect, or how I can build up and edify the people in this region is my goal for that. But the women is my primary. They're my heart.
Andy, are you in contact with another former guest on this show, Helen Berryman over in Britain with BN?
I'm not.
Okay.
I've heard of her though. I talk with Anna Wooding. She runs A Naturist World.
Yes.
And really, are you familiar with that forum?
I'm familiar with that work, but I'm not her personally.
Yeah. So she's in the campaign. She was, her words were, she went from self-conscious to self-confident. And it's her picture that I chose as a lot of my media things, the I'm perfect word and on the calendar, because she exemplifies a healthy, natural woman. And I love that about her. And she's been great. She's an awesome writer. So I'd encourage you to go check out A Naturist World. And then AANR sponsors a naturist hub as well. And both are really great forums for the nudist community. And if there is anyone bothering you, say if you're a woman and you want to jump on either one of those forums, they don't tolerate people bothering you. So all you have to do is let them know, and they'll get kicked out. They'll be blocked. And so you have, it's similar. You have to be appropriate with your behavior and respectful. And so I like that about both of those forums.
And I will put both of those
Great
in the description as well, of course, with Andy's website and Annar's as well. So the audience has a lot to do when they're done with this episode. Now that we've primed the pump. Now, Andy, the last major question we can spend some time with, and then I kick it to you if you would like to bring up any additional points. But the last major point I'd like to bring up is this topic of social acceptance. And this concerns some of my writing as well and stuff in the past year. So we have this, I guess, a chicken or the egg dilemma where naturism isn't widely accepted. And naturally, because there are so many carefully fostered misunderstandings about nudity and distortions because of massive prevalence of pornography in the society and other reasons, people have all of this baggage about nudity. And so people who are into naturism very sensibly realize this, and they don't talk about their practice. And then that creates, out of charity towards the other, you mute that aspect. And then when people find out about that, then it creates this dynamic of, oh, what were you hiding? What were you hiding? And all this. And so how do we crack that nut socially, where people naturally are very mum's the word in nudism, and yet the more we do that for whatever sensible reasons, the more we kind of perpetuate this social reality where people think that we're hiding something.
I think there are several aspects to that. So I know many people that do fully enjoy being a nudist, but because of their work, they don't feel that they can make that public. And for example, working in a college setting or at a school, at a public school, if someone finds out, hey, my teacher's a nudist, then I think that uprising can come up, and that because people are frightened by something that's different, especially when you say nudist and you involve child with that, even though, there's no aspect of anything in the work world, but I think that that can come up. Or working
that's exactly what happened last year with us.
That's
exactly what happened.
It's scary for people that don't know. Also, I know a few people that are working in the government, and they don't feel they can share that because they would lose their job. So, and I think there's just that, again, lack of education of social nudism opposed to society's perception of when you're nude, this is what you're doing. But then I think there are just some people that are afraid to tell people because of their reaction. And what we find primarily is that when you do tell someone, they're like, oh, okay, no big deal. Or they might have some questions for you. For the most part, I have talked with a few people who used to be friends and they just don't get it. And so we're really not friends anymore. Acquaintances, I would say. There's no hard feelings there, but there is the fear of maybe losing that friendship. Tom and I were very honest with our families when we started going. Well, we had to be because, they know where we're at all the time because we're all friends on GPS, so they know where we're at. So there's no hiding that. Or if I shut it off, they'll be like, "What are you doing, Mom?" Yeah. But we've been very straightforward.
I know of families, and they'll tell their grown children, like, or even their young children, "Oh, we're going to the city," or even with their own family, they won't tell.
Or the ranch.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Many clubs put the word ranch at the end of it, so they could just say, "Oh, we're going to the ranch this weekend." So
We're going camping.
we're going camping. That is entirely it. Where'd you meet your friends? Oh, we were camping. But I think it's a fear of maybe a loss might be felt because
Mhm.
they've shared that. Um, I don't know. My hope would be that once they are solid in the social aspect of the nudist lifestyle, to take that chance, because oftentimes what it leads to is someone saying, "Oh, I've always wanted to try that.
Mm.
Tell me how to do that." Another experience that I've had many times over when I've told someone or talked to someone, our friends. None of our
Mm.
friends have come up, but some of our kids have, not to be nude, but they wanted to see why we made such a substantial change in our life.
Mm.
Because when we retired, I got to retire early. Tom retired at 62. We sold everything we own, and we have a cabin at Serenity. We have our motorhome, and we're
Mm.
nomadic. Gosh, I kind of forgot where I was going with that.
Being
Um,
open about it as opposed to keeping
yes,
it mute.
yes, thank you. So the kids were not wanting to really talk about it to begin with, because I think they felt we were we were doing something in a sexual nature. Um, but after a few years, after us talking about it continually, saying this is what we're doing, nothing sexual about it, and they came up. Many of them came up and saw where we live, and they were like, "Oh, this is beautiful." And we were clothed when they were there. We were respectful of that for
Mm.
them. We just wanted them to get them on the property, and they were like, "Oh, we get it. We
Mm.
totally get it." Having coffee together, breakfast out on the deck, and looking over the beautiful mountains down at the lake, and they get it. They still don't want to try it, but but at least they understand why we do.
Mhm.
So it's getting that open conversation. It's getting over the fear that maybe it won't go the way we want. But sometimes, and oftentimes, it does go the way we want. We just have
Mm.
to open up and share. And those conversations, we have to have the conversations.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone who's kind of mum's the word about naturism in their own life or their work or whatever. Just pull the trigger.
Yeah,
Don't coddle fearful people, because you might be doing it out of charity for them, and they'll not understand it or whatever. No, it doesn't even necessarily need to be fear. It could just be out of, that's probably not their thing and
yeah,
whatever. But don't coddle those people, because if it ever comes out that you're a nudist, they're automatically going to fall into morbid thinking about why and your motives and so forth. And
yeah.
it's just not. Don't even waste your time doing that. If you're going to do something, just be out about it, because there's such garbage thinking, and people can't think logically, and their interpersonal skills are so rotted that it's just not going to be worth your time. Even if you're trying to be charitable to the other, it's a
Right.
waste.
Well, yeah, I mean, that have that conversation, and if it doesn't go the way you're hoping it goes, then I mean, we do have less friends in our community of Yakima than we used to,
Mm.
but look at what we have gained. I have gained some
Yeah.
of the most amazing friendships that I never thought possible with these women. I've been looking for a best friend my entire life. I never had one until 5 years ago. And
Mm.
now I have so many deep, meaningful relationships. And I feel Tom is the same way. He's made some incredible friendships with the men in naturism. And then it goes both ways. I mean, I have some great friendships with men, and it crosses over.
Mhm.
But I feel I've gained way more than I've lost, uh, being open and honest about being a nudist. So it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Totally worth it.
The-
Yeah.
yeah, the same here. So, Andy, Any other topics appropriate to naturism, your work with, particularly with women and Anar and so forth? Anything else that you'd like to bring up?
Oh gosh, we've covered on quite a bit, I think.
Mm,
Uh,
a day's work.
the day's work, which is great. I would like to just read a few things, if I
Please.
could,
Yes,
that
ma'am.
I leave the women with on the tour um, when I've told my story, and at the end, what I want to leave them with
Mm,
is a quote by Naira Wayeed, and it says, "And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I've been waiting my whole life for this." So what nudism has
mm,
done for me is help me be my own friend and to
mm.
love myself, love the skin I'm in. And that has given me such peace and calm, and I never got anywhere else. So
Mm. Oh, those are good words and fine sentiments there, Andy. So, to the audience, you have your homework ahead of you now. So, you have to do some thinking yourself if this is, if
yeah,
nature is something for you. And then check out Andy's sites. The main one here, you can find out about her related works and so forth, is womenandnuderecreation.com in the bubble you see, and also down below, additionally, the ANR website, as well as the Naturist World and Naturist Hub links as well. And then finally, after 7 months of checking out these websites, you can take a look at Apocatastasis for classes. And we actually have a class on nudist history, but also, regular stuff as well, Latin and whatnot. And of course, our Litchfield County naturists. And next time we get you on here, Andy, you'll have to break out the guitar. I see on your website you have the guitar on the dock there, so we'll
I
have to get a
do.
few songs out of you.
Yeah, I love to sing and play guitar, and wrote a couple of songs in honor of my parents. So
Excellent. Well, we're going to definitely get that next time we have you on here. But Andy, especially, thank you for your insights and your passion on this topic.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.